This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. I'm your host, Darren McKee, and with me, as usual, is Adam Gardner.
What's up, cuboids?
We have a great show for you, this first show of 2026. I'm going to give you some book reviews about Nvidia, Palantir, and what makes certain civilizations successful. But first, infant simulator programs, Adam. How do I simulate becoming an infant?
Probably with some sort of VR or something like that, but that's not really what I want to talk about.
Okay, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I do want to talk about infant simulators. Not simulating infants, simulating raising an infant. I went to high school in the mid-1990s, and something I expected to experience, but never did, was a class where they would give you some sort of fake baby to pretend that it was a baby to teach you to, I don't know, be a parent. Being a parent is horrible, something like that. Why did I think this? Because I watched a lot of TV, and I remember things like AC Slater and other characters I saw on TV participating in this weird ritual.
Do you mean like taking care of an egg?
Exactly. So, Darren, we must watch similar shows. So such programs, non-existent at my own school, were based on something that really did exist in the real world, and they didn't really work as intended, which, depending on what you think, may or may not have been for the best.
Hey, you know the expression, if you want to raise a kid, you got to break some infants. No? Too soon?
It was too soon, Darren. It's more soft-boiled, and we're going for hard.
Yikes.
All right, Adam, what have you been talking about? So the specifics vary. In the shows I used to watch, I recall, as Darren mentioned, seeing an egg being used as the sort of baby stand-in. Aside from Saved by the Bell, other examples using eggs or an episode of Charles in Charge. And there's an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where they use eggs, and then the eggs end up being like these evil parasites, and they try to take over people's brains and stuff like that. I think another show I watched had a doll, but I can't remember which one, and I couldn't find specifics when I looked it up. I found a few examples of shows which used bags of flour, such as The Simpsons, or dolls such as The Office. I probably watched those episodes, but I don't really remember the specifics. But this wasn't just fodder for TV shows. It was, as I mentioned, a real thing. Back in the late 1900s, when I was growing up, this was something done with inanimate objects like eggs or dolls, and it later was done with advanced infant simulators. So the idea was to teach children about the difficulty in caring for a baby. More specifically, in this case, it's not so much teaching you how to be a good parent, but to show the kids that babies are actually really hard work, and basically to be careful to not get pregnant. That was the purpose of this experiment. So you have a teenager who needs to constantly watch this sack of flour or an egg or a robot infant or a doll or something like that, depending on the program. Feed it, change it, otherwise tend to it at certain times a day. As a parent of two children, I can confirm that the first year with a baby is actually really grueling. It's very difficult in a way that I expect caring for a sack of flour can't really simulate, but that's the idea.
In some ways, it's easier to keep a baby alive than an egg around for a year, unless you just put it in your fridge and hopefully nothing touches it.
Yeah, I think Zach boiled his or something like that. But still, it's meant to be a sort of vague indicator of the difficulty and give you an idea, especially as a teenager. You're not used to that level of responsibility. Or you're not to say that teenagers are not responsible for things, but just a different scope of things, different types of things.
Of course.
So did it work? Some research suggests that no, it did not. And there are a couple of studies. One is from The Lancet. The title was Efficacy of Infant Simulator Programs to Prevent Teenage Pregnancy, a school-based cluster randomized control trial in Western Australia. This references a British medical journal study with the title, An Infant Simulator Program Did Not Reduce Teenage Pregnancy. Pretty straightforward. I couldn't track down the full text of the study, but basically researchers in Australia, including Dr. Sally Brinkman, looked at the results of virtual infant parenting pregnancy prevention programs, which use robot babies to try and teach teenagers about parenthood. These robot dolls have to be cared for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They record how they're rocked, fed, burped, and changed, far from a sack of flour or an egg. The stated goal of this program is to discourage teenagers from wanting a baby. Professor Brinkman saw a lack of evidence for this program and sought to investigate. In 2003, they did a randomized controlled trial among 3,000 Western Australian teenagers aged 13 to 15. Half of the group got the VIP, or Virtual Infant Parenting Program, and the other half got the standard health curriculum. They accessed the children's de-identified medical records until they were 20 to see if they got pregnant. In 2007, only 4 years after the start of the study, before the girls even hit 20, the numbers showed that girls who took the program were more likely to have become pregnant.
Does it say how much more?
Yep, she gives numbers. So this was not the case of the researchers finding what they wanted. Dr. Brinkman was surprised and had to double check the numbers, expecting a decrease or at least an even number of pregnancies, not an increase. She asked the schools to stop running the program.
Ooh, when the ethical choice is that's dire.
Yeah. So by 20, the VIP group had a 17% pregnancy rate compared to 11% in the control group. I was surprised that the numbers could be this high, but these aren't really all teen pregnancies if they go up to the age of 20. But this kind of explains why. Further to this, less of the women in the intervention group with the virtual infant parenting program terminated the pregnancies, so 53.8%, compared to the control group of 60.1%. So perhaps this explains why the pregnancy numbers were higher than I expected, because those pregnancies did not all result in the birth of a child.
True.
So much to say the people who did the virtual infant program simply were more likely to want to have a child. Some of the girls just liked looking after the dolls and were sad to give them back at the end of the program. Further research by Thi Thuy Hadin and others examined the study I just mentioned and others and ultimately found the evidence of such intervention programs to be inconclusive. So much to say they also did not find that they were shown to reduce pregnancy in any significant way. So first question I wonder is, was that really the point of this program? And I think the answer is yes. The stated goal of these programs is to present raising a baby as difficult. One such program is called BTIO, which stands for Baby Think It Over.
Yes. It also sounds like the name of a weird song.
Yeah, it does. Although I found the results of these studies surprising and then funny when I first heard them, they do seem a bit obvious in retrospect, but most things usually are. Humans and animals in general have been programmed through over 1 billion years of evolution to care for our young. A mother's bond with her baby is very strong. Children are drawn to play with dolls and nurture them, give a young woman a doll to take care of, and make it simulate an actual baby. And, well, you think this will make her not want to have a baby? So, yes, of course, babies are a lot of work, but a lot of people who have babies actually intentionally have more babies.
Yes.
And if you ever see a friend group where one person has a baby, sometimes others in the friend group will as well. So if you haven't experienced this, maybe because no one in your friend groups had a baby, you haven't had one yourself. So if you have someone hold a real baby for a bit, they'll probably think, oh, it might be nice to have one of these babies.
Hasn't happened.
Haven't held the right baby yet. The other thought I had is raising a baby is really hard. Like I mentioned before, I don't think the egg or the flour sack or even the virtual infant really replicates that. Like, it would take me an hour to put my daughter to sleep. Yeah. She would cry in my face for 2 hours from 5 to 7 every single night. She would wake me up at night. It would take another hour of me pacing at 3 a.m. to put her to sleep. Like the egg's not doing that.
No. No.
So it's like, oh, this was kind of slightly inconvenient, and I had to stop from watching my show to rock it or something and be like, okay. And it was cute, so it was nice.
I mean, that's a nice fatherly love interpretation. It just sounds terrible from my point of view, from the outside, because it's also not my kid, right? That's what some people say. It's different when it's your kid.
Yeah, and you there's hormones, and we're wired to put up with it and even enjoy it in a weird way and forget about it. And there's a lot of things, and that's just life. Right?
And you get the reward. So these simulator programs, it seems like they may not show how difficult it might be, especially if it's a sack of flour.
Yeah.
But you're getting, in theory, very little emotional reward from this activity.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, is this ethical or unethical? What if you made it so it was really unpleasant?
Yeah.
But you want it to be accurate or representative. Otherwise, it does seem a bit dubious.
Yeah. So my next thought was, well, more people got pregnant. Isn't that great? So my most heretical opinion is that teen pregnancy can be good. Unwanted pregnancies, especially those that are terminated, would surely be better off never having occurred. So, I don't think we need to get into a whole abortion debate, but that procedure is rough and potentially traumatic. So if you avoid that in the first place, I think that's better off. But an unplanned pregnancy doesn't always have to be an unwanted pregnancy. We're experiencing a serious fertility crisis where people are having less children than they'd like. Someone has a child younger than they might have planned, but still has the means, perhaps the support from family and friends to raise that child, and this can be a positive thing. For some people, people generally underestimate their ability to support a child, putting it off until much too late, often experiencing fertility issues when they finally get around to planning a family. So don't get me wrong. It's probably preferable for most people to have their children sort of in their 20s, not in their teens. But a program that encourages people to have children would generally be good, arguably.
My 2 cents is, while there is reduced fertility, it's not the same as there being a crisis. And that's a different claim, which I don't fully agree with.
So you don't agree with the label I give it?
Correct. There's reduced fertility. I'm not sure if that's a problem over the next decades. We'll see.
Yeah, that's fair. So maybe we should instead offer these programs to women who are like 20 to 25 years old to encourage them to have children at a time in their life when they're most fertile while most capable of supporting a child financially and having the maturity to do so.
But people can't afford the price of eggs right now.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So I'm not being, all that serious. It doesn't really seem like there's that huge an increase in pregnancies from these programs if there really is an effect. I think more the point is it doesn't reduce them. So all this being said, whether these programs are used or not, teen pregnancy rates across the world have been plummeting for decades. I think people just have this vague idea that drug use, teen sex, teen drinking, and all these things have been skyrocketing when the opposite is generally true. Teenagers do less of all of these things. They stay inside, play video games, look at their phones, whatever. There are, of course, a lot of factors, including contraception and abortion, that can lead to this. I don't think the virtual infant programs are really making a huge difference in those numbers. Programs designed to teach children about how difficult it is to raise a baby don't seem to work. Some evidence even suggests they might increase, not decrease, rates of pregnancy in teenagers and young adults. And I frankly don't feel that bad about that. If you're an opponent of teen pregnancy, then be happy that this is a constantly shrinking problem.
Interesting. I wonder what the rates are in other places, because my first thought was, what's going on down under for our perspective?
Yeah, right? That's true. I looked at those numbers, and maybe there's a lot of teen pregnancies in Western Australia, but yeah, I don't know. They were going up to 20. So I think someone having a child at 18, 19, 20, especially in a rural area, is maybe not that unusual.
Yeah, that's fair. Thanks, Adam. I was curious what the other rates were, so I did a quick Googling, and at least in Canada, in 2016, under 20, we had 3% of women giving birth. So that's births, which means, also, first of all, it's like 9 years ago, so it's going to be less now. But as you said, some of those studies that you mentioned were also from a while ago. So it does seem like the Australian example might be double what is currently happening in Canada. And I assume then there's pretty high variance. But it also is plausible that these intervention programs don't work in many places as opposed to just not working in Australia.
Yeah, there may be other factors there too. I don't know much about Western Australia. My understanding is a lot of the large cities are around the east side. So yeah, there may be other factors to consider there too.
So Adam, I never gave my mother a grandchild, but I did give birth to a book for her. And much like these other authors also gave birth to ideas in their books. So I thought I'd start off the new year with a review of 3 of the books I finished in the past couple months.
Great.
I'm going to try to make these reviews a little bit more concise. First one, The Thinking Machine, Jensen Huang, Nvidia, and the World's Most Coveted Microchip. This came out in April 2025 by Stephen Witt. This was an excellent biography of Nvidia and the man who has led it for over 30 years. I enjoyed the author's previous book, How Music Got Free, and I think this one is also great if you're interested in the subject. If you're not interested in NVIDIA, don't bother. How this company came to be the richest on earth and how Jensen Huang sees the world and acts to achieve his goals. That's mainly what it's about. The nuggets are, NVIDIA is a software company, not just a hardware company.
Really?
Because everyone thinks about just selling chips, right? And the author makes the case that it is the ways in which their chips can be leveraged that makes them so competitive.
Okay, so it's methods of having like games, for example, use their graphics capability and offload them to the graphics card instead of like the CPU.
Not just that, but they have teams of software engineers that can utilize the chips in certain ways and can show other people how to utilize them.
The chip ultimately is running dedicated. The hardware is running dedicated commands. Right?
Yes. Jensen has worked for about 12 hours a day, 5 days a week for 30 years. He is never fully satisfied. So it's like, what does it feel like to have $100 billion? And he's like, I don't know. I don't have any plan to even what I'm going to do with the money.
Wow.
Because he was never thought he was going to be that successful, but the goal is to just always be more successful.
Okay.
And they sort of think like, how do people become like that? Well, they're like that and they're never fully satisfied.
Yeah.
Jensen hates any discussion of larger risks from AI.
Oh.
Almost vehemently in disbelief his product could even possibly cause lots of harm. Yeah. The author would bring this up now and then. And the last time he brought it up, Jensen got really, really mad at him. And I guess Jensen is known for sometimes getting really, really mad at employees, just absolutely losing it.
Funny.
Yeah. Well, not funny at all. Like it's
why
apparently
do you want to work 12 hours a day?
Well, seriously, it's a bit of that. But he would never do it one-on-one. He would make sure everyone can learn the lesson.
Wow.
Which seems both either nicer or more cruel, depending on how you want to experience what he's doing. But yeah, he could be vicious.
Okay.
So like, this is like, how do you get to the top? Usually it's not by being nice, unfortunately. So overall, staggeringly impressive, this man and what he's achieved, but he sacrificed almost everything else to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Nvidia. The next one, The Philosopher in the Valley, Alex Karp, Palantir, and the Rise of the Surveillance State. This came out in November 2025 by Michael Steinberger. So first, a nice summary from the publisher as it decently describes the book. An acclaimed New York Times Magazine writer brings us into the world of the controversial technology firm Palantir and its very colorful and outspoken CEO, Alex Karp, tracing the ascent of big data, the rise of surveillance technology, and the shifting global balance of power in the 21st century. Dun, dun, dun. It was not that dramatic if you actually read the book.
Most things aren't.
No. I liked the book, though, and found it informative, as I didn't know that much about Karp or Palantir beforehand.
Sure.
I would see stuff in the news, like some Palantir software did something, but I didn't know that much about it. I can't really say the book was compelling, but it was useful to better understand the world. And Palantir really did make a name for itself, providing software to numerous different types of organizations for numerous purposes. And you could think it like, well, it's helping policing, it's helping healthcare, it's helping in Ukraine, it's doing this, it's doing that. And Alex Karp was a bit of a, we'll call him unconventional guy, between, kind of normal to kind of weird. And he doesn't know how to do code. He's not a tech guy at all. He also doesn't have top secret clearance. So even though he's done extensive work, well, the company has done extensive work with the military, he can't be in certain meetings.
Oh my God.
Right.
Like, I can have this high level conversation, but don't show me an IP address or anyone's personal data.
Or someone's like, so if something like this were to happen, what would you think we should do?
Wow.
So he'll have, some people in the company clearly have top secret, and they go to those meetings and they do the work. But I think it's very interesting when the main person behind it does not.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. He definitely cared a lot about his legacy, his fame, because Palantir was co-founded by good old Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel would get a lot of the press coverage.
Sure.
For one reason or another.
It's a bigger name or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, if once you're anti-Peter Thiel, then you can just lump in Palantir as well.
Yeah, why not?
There's reasons to maybe be against Karp as well, depending on how you see these things. It was interesting to see, through the course of the book, Karp go from being very anti-Trump to pro-Trump. That happens over a period of years.
What years?
Oh, because Palantir's been around for a couple decades.
No, but was it between the first and second presidency, or did he just not like The Apprentice, right?
Yeah, he was like, a worst reality show ever.
I didn't like Home Alone 2.
Yeah, exactly. More of a Survivor Love Island guy. Yeah, exactly. Home Alone 2. Ruined it. It was mainly leading up to the first presidency and part of that.
Yeah,
and then the second one came around.
That's fair.
Similarly, Karp made a name for himself repeatedly talking about defending the West in terms of its values. That's what Palantir's goal was. Okay. It wasn't other things. It really was this supposedly noble idea defined as like democracy, Western values, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
It was defined as democracy and values. And then that shifted to still defending the West. But now that was defined as the West being a better deployer of violence. Yeah.
Oh.
It's like, well, we just do violence better. So that's why we should, like, oh no. This is when, like, careful who gets power, right? A bit disappointing and concerning. Mm-hmm. The book also served as a reminder of the complexity of the world, as I mentioned, because Palantir software is used in so many different ways by so many different groups. Sure. So while I may have some concerns about, Palantir in situation ABC, it turns out I'm really appreciative that it's being used in XYZ. I probably enjoyed the Nvidia book more, and that's both because of the subject matter and the writing or the structure. I was just more interested in Nvidia. Mm-hmm. I think it's just more interesting as a topic, although Palantir might be more day-to-day impactful, like in how people experience the world, whether they're being surveilled, we'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. But, you need the chips to go with the software to do the thing, and they all kind of blend together. And finally, the third book of the segment, Peak Human, What We Can Learn from History's Greatest Civilizations. And this was from September 2025 by Johan Norberg. Good old AI summary. What's it about? The book examines how civilizations achieve extraordinary cultural, scientific, and economic growth, but also why these eras inevitably end, drawing parallels to contemporary challenges and urging readers to learn from the past to avoid repeating mistakes.
Oh, that's troubling.
So what's in the book, though? What are the key themes? Well, there's an analysis of some golden ages. The author explores 7 distinct periods of peak civilization. You have ancient Athens, the Roman Republic, Abbasid Baghdad, the Caliphate, Song China, Renaissance Italy, the Dutch Republic, and the Anglosphere, which kind of goes from the Dutch to the English, the British, and then to America and the Commonwealth, so to speak. What were the things that drove success? Well, the author identifies common factors like openness to trade, ideas and migration, free markets, and a spirit of inquiry. It's a lot about being openness to ideas and taking people's ideas if you can. What about the causes of decline? Well, here you have internal fracturing, a loss of self-confidence, excessive restrictions, and complacency as common pitfalls. There's a bit of a call to action where we should praise human achievement while cautioning that the current prosperity isn't guaranteed and requires vigilance.
Interesting.
So I thought this was a decent book filled with lots of interesting information about diverse cultures. I did take a lot of notes where you're listening to the audio, where each chapter is say 90 minutes, 2 hours, some are a bit longer, some a bit shorter. You're like, well, that's interesting. I didn't quite know that, or that's interesting. I wanted, to be honest, a bit more, we'll say, science-y approach, more like a comparative historical analysis with increased methodological rigor to get at causal variables for success. If you happen to know the book Why Nations Fail, that tried to look at, from a social science point of view, what are the key variables of why nations fail. And so I thought this might be, what are the key variables of why a nation succeeds? Which it kind of is. That is the subtitle.
Yeah.
But to do that, again, in a more scientific way, you'd have to find examples of so-called successful civilizations and ones that weren't successful, and make sure like all the success-related variables are in the one and not in the other. Otherwise, you have a complication of what's doing the causal lifting here. What is actually the explanation for why it succeeds?
Well, you need some time travel and interfere drastically with entire cultures.
Oh, well, you just have to expand the multiverse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this guy knows a lot more history than I do, and it was informative. But when I thought, is this really why that thing succeeded, that civilization succeeded? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
He does say he can't cover all civilizations, and that's fine. I don't expect to be a book about everything. And just because something wasn't included, it does not mean it wasn't successful. He says it explicitly.
Yeah.
But there's no mention of Egypt whatsoever. And you think like, well, didn't Egypt sort of invent and discover some things a few thousand years before a lot of these civilizations?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. You're like, well, if someone even just did a quick, like, these are the variables that led Egypt to be successful, and maybe why it fell and rose and fell again, I might appreciate that more. So I think there's a future book out there, or maybe, GPT-6 can do some nice analysis about what might be more likely to succeed.
And that other factor in Egypt was aliens.
Of course, I'm not saying it's aliens. So the other issue is that even if you could isolate why all these places have succeeded, that is the past. And it does not necessarily mean it is why the present might succeed. Now, of course, that's all we got to work with. So it's useful to think about that and take that into account. There were some other interesting, perspective reinforcers. I won't say shifts because it's not like it's completely new, but like, oh yeah, it's nice when it's framed that way. For example, we are currently in the only golden age that has not ended.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, right. And like, I know democracy and civilization is fragile, perhaps even more so lately if you're reading the news. And to be reminded of it is a bit helpful. But even that phrasing like, oh, yes, because he does sort of line up the Dutch being very impressive because they're a very small place. So it's not about geography. It's not about resources. And yet they managed to achieve all these things, leading to Britain, leading to America, leading to this, where it's sort of been a consistent run of success. We're going to put success in quotes. You can't see me. And of course, still nation states do terrible things. So there is a bit of a compared to what that has to be said. It is said in the book. I think it could have been said even more when you're talking about how great some of these places are. They were also terrible. He does mention slavery is like in almost every chapter in every civilization, and it's been terrible. There are different types of slaves, and there are a huge range of actions or privileges or rights that slaves had or didn't have, where some being far worse than others. And even ones are like, oh, these slaves were allowed to get married, but you could still just kill them because they were your property, right? These horrible things.
So did he investigate whether slavery helped or hindered a civilization?
Not really. He does take, he takes on the claim whether like the slavery that was in the American South was really that useful for economic development.
Yeah.
He thinks it wasn't really as much. I think that's a more detailed claim that you'd have to get into more detail than the book provided.
Yeah.
I'm open-minded about that. I mean, it was still terrible, right? No matter what.
Well, yeah, the reason it's bad is because it's terrible and because of the human suffering. But if you can also make an argument that like actually it's worse for society, well, then it's just like, okay, then it's just like lose-lose. But
well,
yeah, I don't know.
You need that argument. Yes, if someone's not going to respond well to that first argument, maybe you need the second one.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if people today really need to be convinced that slavery is bad. But yeah, I don't know. I guess there are still views on that topic that maybe
yes.
don't agree with
Well,
each
I mean, most people I know think slavery is bad. Almost everyone I know thinks slavery is bad. And yet, as regular listeners of the show will hear me say, there's like 40 million people currently in slavery.
Yeah.
Most of us don't do anything about it. So we think it's bad. We don't do anything about it. Cognitive dissonance, I'm not sure. You can do with that what you like. All I have to say is it was useful to be reminded of some of these things, these historical events where, yes, Britain really helped sort of institutionalize the slave trade. And then it really helped stop it.
Yeah.
Right. And something like the Royal Navy dedicated something like 20% of its ships for 50 years to try to stop the slave trade.
To stop it.
Yeah. Policing
nice.
it. Yeah. Well, nice. I mean, it's the least they could do,
Well, I mean,
one would say.
it's all terrible, but yes.
And so anyway, you get little snippets of, I did not know much about the Abbasid Caliphate or exactly what happened in Song, China. And I thought this was very interesting. It's not quite the book I wanted, though. There's a different book by Carl Benedict Frey, who wrote a book that I liked previously. The new one is called, I think, Why Progress Ends or When Progress Ends. That might be interesting. I'm now recommending books I haven't read. And there's also one called Goliath's Curse. And this is like Why Civilizations Collapse, which I think is probably more socio-political, maybe psychology than, say, The Collapse by Jared Diamond, which tends to be geographically focused. All I have to say is those are 3 books for your consideration, listeners.
Goliath's Curse was David.
Wah, wah.
Sorry.
I don't know, Adam. I haven't read the book.
It's a banger.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Well, thank you for joining us, listeners. And thank you to Adam, who told us that infant simulator programs don't work. It's probably because they have to spend all their time in kangaroo pouches down in Australia. And I provided some books for your consideration. Until next time, think better, act better.
Peace out, cuboids.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at TRC_podcast.
Outtakes. What are you saying, Adam? Okay.
What a rough start to the year. Put that in the outtakes. Okay, sorry, I'll stop interrupting.
Okay.
That's not we can't use that. Can't use that. I'm gonna make this text bigger. I think I need to get glasses. That's the main issue.
Or bigger phone.
Oh yeah, or tablet. Yeah, exactly.
Put on the TV.
It's true. It's true. Or just make the font bigger in the dock. Anyway, yeah.
That's great. It's great because we know we have Australian listeners.